So I would like to jump right in and ask you, since we spoke 3 years ago, almost to the day, I think it was in June 2021,
Mhm.
what has changed in the way you do interpreting for your company or for Japanese, with Americans, with other nationalities? What has changed?
Well, first of all, 3 years ago at that time, I was working for a automotive company, and we were starting a new plant, basically, installing lines and equipment, all this stuff. And that was a 1-year contract. So I'm no longer there. I am now at an HVAC company, and it's still a manufacturing company. So I do some manufacturing too, but I do a lot more than that, like corporate, marketing, engineering type stuff. So that's like the major change. But if you want to know the specifics, ask me.
Absolutely. Please don't stop. Continue. I'm what I'm curious about, and I think also the viewers might be curious, is what has changed in terms of how you do interpreting, what you've seen in terms of the technology that might have has evolved. So, for example, I use AI a lot more than I used to
Hmm.
for drafting Japanese emails, for doing translations. I know in interpreting, especially if it's simultaneous interpreting, it's still not possible. Although I would say the level of Google Translate, etc., has evolved, how responsive it is. And I think most recent, like pretty recently, OpenAI was showing their newest model, I think GPT 4.0, which has a very short response time. So you can basically have a very natural human-like conversation with it and or ask it to interpret. So you just ask it, I am talking to my Japanese friend. He doesn't speak English. Can you interpret for me, please? And then it's just like a simultaneous interpreter that will do that interpreting. So I'm just curious to hear from your side what you've seen being like boots on the ground in the midst of all of this, in terms of technology, in terms of your interpretation or interpreting style, and maybe talking to other colleagues that are also in the same field.
Hmm. So I remember 3 years ago when we were talking, I was saying that because of COVID situation, the pandemic situation, we started having a lot more online meetings. And at that time, I was doing online meetings on Teams, and I was having to do consecutive, and I was hating it because I'm not really good at consecutive. Um, but now we have been using Zoom because it has a interpretation function, and we can actually do simultaneous there. Um, but as far as like the whole AI technology and how we utilize it in our job, it has not reached us yet. And I know a lot of the expats use Google Translate, in their conversations with the local counterparts. But um, a lot of times it does cause confusion and misunderstanding, unfortunately, still. And I don't know if that's because of the language difference between Japanese and English, but as far as I can see in my day-to-day work, I haven't really seen that much change from the new technology, except for that whole Zoom function, which is really, really helpful. I'm really thankful that Zoom has that function. Yay, Zoom.
Got it. So the Zoom function you're talking about is like that you can use different channels for audio, or what are you referring to?
Yeah, well, it has the interpretation function where the interpreter can be assigned, and then we choose which languages, from, in my case, English to Japanese, etc. We select that, and then the listeners can switch channels and listen to whatever language that they need to.
like at a big, for example, conference with audio equipment and the interpreter booth in the back, something similar, but in Zoom
Right,
form. Okay.
right.
Oh, great. Yes, yes. I actually had the experience that I just once I I'm doing interpreting as a side gig, and it's not my main job. And I always try to make the client aware that I'm not a certified interpreter, but there
Mhm,
aren't very many in South Florida. So sometimes I
mhm,
do get requests, and if time allows it, if I'm not too busy, I'm doing that. So I do remember that once they were setting up that separate channel for interpreting. They actually put two channels. So they had one interpreter for English and one
mhm,
interpreter for Japanese, because they had in the participants there were, it was mixed. It was in the medical field, and there were US and Japanese participants. So
mhm,
whenever um, the Japanese would speak, I would interpret into English,
mhm,
and vice versa.
mhm.
So yeah, and the participants could choose which channel they would listen to.
Right. But because of that, there's a new problem where people don't use it correctly. Well, it's not that they can't use a function correctly, but they don't, some people refuse to wear the headset. So, like interpreting through Zoom can be actually very pleasant because you can hear the sound very well. But if they're not wearing a headset, or if they have really bad internet, it's just like very terrible. Yeah, that's a
True,
new challenge we're
true,
facing.
true. I can understand. Yeah, I can imagine. So, have you in your new environment, in your new work at the new company, have
Mhm.
you changed the way you're interpreting? Is it saying it's still a Japanese company? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So is basically, do they still have like the morning get together, like a chore, like the quality circles and all that that they used to have?
no,
No?
no, it's a completely different work style for me now. Um, I know last 3 years ago, like I said, we were launching a new plant or starting up a new plant. So I was always on the floor doing trials and, training, etc. Very physically demanding. And we also had the chore, the asakai, and morning meetings, etc. But now it's an established company, so we do some production, manufacturing related meetings, but it's not so production heavy. So our work style is like kind of hybrid, where we do a lot of Zoom meetings from home, and then we have some face-to-face meetings that are sometimes manufacturing or engineering or corporate meetings. So my everyday schedule is completely different week to week. Um, I have a lot of free time. I don't have to go to work, from 8 to 5. Yeah, it's a lot more flexible. And I think that's thanks to the pandemic and the whole remote culture that, came after that or during that time. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're kind of like a really good example of how the pandemic has actually helped your work-life balance
Mhm.
and has facilitated a lot in regards to having more free time or being able to um, kind of manage your time better than prior to the pandemic. Could you give us, for example, like a typical day in your prior job that you used to have versus how it is right now, like from morning to evening?
All right, so let me try to remember. 3 years ago at the previous job, I think I started at like 7 or 7:30, and then I would do the morning meetings, and then I would go to each line, production lines, and then do group meetings, etc. And then I would have to attend like trials or the real production and monitor the whole production process. So I was basically on the floor constantly from 7 to whenever. Now I don't know if I have a typical day here, but so Okay. I might have a Zoom meeting at 8:30 to 10. And then I would get ready, go to work for a meeting at 11 or something, a face-to-face meeting. And then I would have like 2, 3 hours in between, and then I might have another face-to-face at work, and then go home to do another Zoom meeting or something like that. And Zoom meetings are usually more corporate side, more operations, business operations side meetings, and face-to-face would be more manufacturing related meetings. Yeah.
Interesting. So the corporate side, they do they still work in the office, or most of them are working remotely?
I think it's like half and half.
Okay.
Not everybody will come in every day, but they would probably come in half, like 3, 4, no, well, 2, 3 days out of the week or something like
Okay.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
curious too because from my experience, a lot of Japanese at the beginning of the pandemic had a hard time adjusting to that and working from home because they felt kind of out of place, out of their community, because usually you just like, I don't want to say work is life, but
Yeah.
uh, some of them have that perception because you belong to your kind of workplace, right? The
Mhm.
friends that you have are at your workplace. The people you go to have a drink with in the evening, that's your colleagues at work. The people you go golfing with and on the weekends, that's the people from work. So usually your circle of friends is at your workplace. And
Yeah.
a lot of them kind of felt very lonely, and maybe not only lonely, but I would say they were afraid they were kind of maybe they had some kind of FOMO, fear of missing out. Maybe I don't get a promotion because my boss can't see that I'm staying late or whatever.
Mhm.
So they would send emails as late as possible or whatever. But I'm just curious, is this changing? Have you seen this changing at your new job? That oh, so it's just the American
Mhm.
side that is staying remotely, and the
Mhm.
Japanese are in the office.
Yeah.
Okay,
Japanese people have not changed. They still come in
okay.
maybe early and stay late, you know. They don't like the remote thing.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, that kind of, I was about to accept a paradigm shift, but now I realize that it's still the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed. Interesting. And when you think how you have changed your work style in talking to Japanese, talking to American people in the corporate field. Is there a change in terms of how you worked with, because you've been working in automotive and now it's HVAC? It's still manufacturing, but
Yeah.
has there been a cultural change that you've experienced?
Not much cultural. I think if there's any cultural change, it's not because of the industry, but because of the company cultures. But yeah, um, yeah, not was it yeah, not necessarily a difference in the industry, but obviously we make different things, not cars. Um, and I think for me, I like cars, so I was familiar with a lot of the stuff that we were making. I've heard of at least like the words or the terminology, a lot of them. But HVAC is like just a box with a fan in it or a coil in it, and you don't know what's inside and you don't know how it's made. So it's like a big mystery box that we work with. Um, but and also the whole engineering part of it is very tricky too, and especially because of the whole um the technology advancement. We now are talking about like connectivity and the remote control of the air conditioning and data collecting and whatever thing. Um, yeah, that's kind of new, I guess, for me, in HVAC industry.
Got it. Got it. And talking about the or your role specifically, Are there still, is it still common that many Japanese don't have any English proficiency? Because I hear a lot from clients or prospects that I'm talking to. It's like, I mean, they do speak English, right? Why do I need an interpreter when I go there? It's like, well, if you go there, most likely not. If you have experienced some expatriates, they're sent abroad, but they don't really speak English. But has that changed a bit after? I mean, I don't want to say in 3 years, but maybe changing your company or is there any change in that regard? Do you see a shift that there are more people that are proficient, or are even on the other hand, maybe for those that are watching this, that have some Japanese proficiency and that they're interested in working at a Japanese corporation in the US, for example, do you see more hiring of people that have some Japanese proficiency, or is that not really a case?
I think at this company, I see more local people who can speak Japanese. And I think there's definitely needs for that.
Hmm.
But as far as Japanese people with their English proficiency, I haven't really seen much difference.
Wow. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. Have I still like you see more engineers speaking English, and that's probably the case for a lot of different companies anyway. But I don't think overall it has changed that much, which is good.
It's good for you for
Yes,
for your business. That's
definitely.
true. And but you say that there are some employees that have Japanese proficiency.
Hmm. Yeah, not many, but yeah. And I guess that's because this company that I'm working for is way bigger than any other companies that I've worked for. So we have a lot more people working from all different parts of the US. And they just kind of, yeah, maybe that's why I'm seeing more people who speak Japanese, but yeah, I see some
Okay.
working with.
Do you use any for interpreting? Do you use any tools besides a pen and a notepad?
We use a device called DigiWave.
Hmm.
It's like little small transmitters and receivers where we can we can use to do simultaneous interpretation, or if we go to the floor and the sound it's really loud, we can use that to.
And what is that? Everybody, so that's like a transmitter, and everybody else has a receiver automatically in on
Yeah,
the.
so the interpreter will carry the master transmitter,
Mhm.
and then we'll have like channels set for each device. And then we'll set a channel, let's say channel one is English, channel two is Japanese. So an interpreter may have to carry both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then in that case, if we have to carry both, we have to wear two pairs of headsets. So we will have like the earbud type, and then we will have the big like head headphone over that, and it's really uncomfortable. But then the people who are listening to us can carry the receiver for either channel one or two. And then if I'm speaking into channel one, obviously the people with channel one receiver can hear my voice and vice versa. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Um, I think a lot of aspiring interpreters might be watching this or listening to this in Japanese, or people that might consider doing that. I mean, even I'm always amazed by what you're talking about because as mentioned, I've been doing this as a side gig since I think 2016. I did a lot of court interpreting.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it's rather rare that there are business meetings here in South Florida, but it does happen sometimes. Um, what would you give as advice to aspiring interpreters in regards to working in your field? Because you've been doing this for a while. For how long have you been doing this now?
Like a little over 10 years,
Uh-huh.
11 years maybe. Yeah.
So it seems to me because whenever I am interpreting, I really feel that I need a break. And I think it's very demanding. People, if you haven't ever interpreted like a 1 hour meeting, you basically talk nonstop and you have to think on your feet. Like you really have to be at the top of your game for the whole hour mentally. You cannot just take a break and just, you know, in Japanese you say boto suru. You cannot, I don't know how to say that. You can't just phase out, right? You can't
Be
do that.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. It's impossible. So from my personal experience, this is very taxing and demanding. So I was wondering if you see in in regards to your colleagues or others that are working in the same field, if there's some kind of burnout or people saying, okay, no, I'm done with interpreting. I'm not doing anything more because it's not like you're doing this once or twice a week or you're doing it on a daily basis. So of course there's a component where you got used to it, but at the
Mhm.
same time I'm curious if you have a feeling that this is something that you can do long term, and if you can, what would be your advice to maybe aspiring interpreters or interpreters that are just at the beginning or interpreters that are right in the middle and they say I can't do it anymore, it's too much.
Well, so about that, my boss at this job is very big on preserving interpreters or prolonging interpreters um I guess work life span. And so he's very adamant about only allowing us to do simultaneous meetings 4 hours a day. According to him, any more than that will cause us to burn out, and it would shorten our lifespan as interpreters. Um, Personally, though, I don't. This is just me because I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I like to burn myself out. um, it is very tiring, and I don't do this many very often now, but if you are doing like an hour or two simultaneous meetings afterwards, you feel like your brain is just all dried up and you can hear it like kind of moving in your head, and you're just like, oh my God, that was so tiring. But I actually kind of enjoyed that, and that feeling. And I also think that it's like a muscle, right? Interpreting, you have to use it in order for your interpreting muscles to be active and working all the time. So I don't necessarily think that 4 hour limit is works for everybody, but that's just me. And for people who are burned out now, what I do is after a long day and when I'm really, really tired, or even if I'm not completely tired, as soon as I come home, I just switch it off and I just stop thinking. Like I veg out like like crazy. And basically on weeknights I'm useless because I'm just like trying to rest my brain and kind of like just switch off, because otherwise your brains it's just buzzing for like 2 3 hours after that crazy meeting, and you can't go to sleep, and it's very it can be very stressful for you. So if you can, turn that brain off, focus on something else, like cook something or go out and play with your dogs or something. I don't know, find something to, you know, shift your focus on. And I know you asked me about aspiring interpreters. My advice to them would be to study multiple fields. Even if you're trying to become a interpreter in a specialized field. Like the struggles that I'm going through now is because I was in I was so heavily involved in the manufacturing side of the business for the last 10 years or something. Now that I'm having to do corporate and marketing and HR and IT and engineering, all this stuff, um, it's not that that I don't understand what they're talking about, but the way people talk is so different depending on the field that they're in. And obviously there's specific terminology that they use that I'm not familiar with. So even if I understand the context of what they're trying to say, I can't really like deliver it in a appropriate way. And it sounds like too casual, or it sounds too like I'm explaining things, you know. And I really felt like, oh man, I know I wasn't interested in finance or business or, you know, engineering stuff, but it would have been helpful to kind of like study those fields as well, so I can be more, multifaceted and versatile. So that and just be curious about everything, because that really helps with the learning process. And um obviously you're not going to learn stuff that you're not interested in or you're not curious about. So stay curious and always try to, you know, I don't know, just be open to learning new things, because you're going to have to constantly learn new things, especially if you're a freelance interpreter and you're going from, job to job, to project to project to project, and you're having to learn, how this new company works and what they make, or new lingo, new terminology, new people, everything. You're having to learn constantly. So it's very helpful if you're curious about anything, everything. And another thing is to be competitive, and not necessarily be in competition with your coworkers or your fellow interpreters, but to be competitive with yourself. Because as an interpreter, I'm sure, you know, all the other interpreters can agree with me, but we will never have a meeting where we're like, yes, we nailed that meeting. It's 100% like I did perfect in that meeting. No, I don't think you'll ever have that. And you're always going to be like, oh my God, I could have done that better. Or I should have said this. I should have said that. And, so you're basically, for the next meeting, you're trying to better yourself. You're trying to, you know, beat your last performance. So you always have to try to beat the old you and try to get better that way. Otherwise, if you're complacent, if you're just comfortable where you're at, that's where you're going to be. And you'll probably never get better than that. So, yeah, those
That
are
make
the advices for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think in interpreting as well as in life or business in general, I think that's great advice. You were also talking about lifelong learning. Are you taking any training to improve your interpreting skills, or are you doing anything besides your day-to-day interpreting?
It's just my day to day. The work itself is training, I think, because
Hmm.
you know, you're doing different meetings every day, and oftentimes you're thrown into a meeting where you don't have a clue what's going on, and you're having to learn that as you go. And I think the best way for interpreters to grow and to learn is to just go and do it.
Hmm.
The more you do, the more you grow, better you get. So I probably should be doing some, taking some training classes or something, but especially note-taking classes, but no, I have not been. Yeah.
And in is, for example, is the you were mentioning your boss that is like the interpreter coordinator, I guess, or something like that, that he gets all the requests and then he puts your team, the team of interpreters, into the meeting where he thinks they fit best.
Mhm.
Um, is that a department within the subsidiary here in the US of that Japanese company, or is it a agency that is external and is kind of hired by the company?
No, we're internal. We are part of the HR department. I don't know why, but we are.
Mhm.
And so, and then under HR, we have the interpretation services department, and
Mhm.
that's where we're at.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. Um, any resources in terms of like, I know that you were saying the moment that you're home, you're not doing anything in regards to interpreting. Is there any YouTube channel or any blog or website or kind of, I don't know, somebody you follow in the interpreting field or anything like that?
Nope, I
No.
don't. I don't. But sometimes I do. I just watch YouTube and, maybe news channels or some drama, whatever, movies. And then I know I said I turn my brain off, but sometimes I can't help but try to interpret while watching TV. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I have to stop myself, like, no, 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 no. Turn it off, turn it off. Yeah.
So is your advice like the fastest way to improve your interpreting? It's is just to do the actual job,
I
just to do
think
it.
so.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think so. But don't, you know, do your own research because I'm not, I don't know. That's just me with everything. I just like to just jump in and,
Hmm.
learn as I go. So I don't know. There's probably a lot of resources out there that I don't know about. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So have you used any AI tools? Sometimes do you also have to do translations or you only do interpreting?
We do some translation, but
Hmm.
that's done mainly by my boss. And
Okay.
sometime when he's overburdened, he would assign us some translation, but we have been using what do you call that? Auto translation? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not we're not translating from scratch. Machine translation.
Machine translation. Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what do you know the software that you're using, or is it
It's
Google Translate?
Trados. I don't know, is that how you say it?
How do
Trados.
oh, Trados. Okay.
Yeah, Tra.
Trados. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, I haven't heard about it. I've only heard as, I mean, obviously everybody knows Google Translate, but there is a uh, one that came up pretty frequently that I've been using. It's pretty user friendly in my opinion because you just mark the text, um, hold the control key, and then double tap C. So you copy it once and then you send it to the yeah, to the app, and it translates it automatically without just with a key shortcut, and it's called Deep L.
Mm, I've
I don't know
heard
if
of
you heard
it.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the one I've been using. But other than that, I have to say for interpreting, not sorry, not for interpreting, for translation and replying to emails, what I found very useful, especially if it's a bit more complex and I need a kind of a head start. I think it's never good enough to just copy paste.
Mm,
I think it's just too obvious if you just copy paste it
yeah.
still. Maybe this will change in the future, but to get a head start about the structure of the email, like how you want to reply,
Mm-hmm.
and then or for example, I just write in Japanese, reply to this email with following 3 points included, make it polite. And
Mm,
then it really helps to get that going and get kind of like the framework of how I would structure that. Of course, I'm still changing a couple of things, but that's
mhm.
really, really helpful what I have found in the past. And I've been using this in the past year or so already, and it's been really helpful too. I would reduce sometimes it's a hit or a miss, you know. Sometimes you're with the AI the same amount or more than you would actually have taken to write the email yourself. So you kind of you really have to be mindful of the time that you're investing into using the tool,
Yeah.
be it ChatGPT or what's out there, Gemini or Claude. They're like the three big ones. But yeah, I think it's still coming. Will certainly, and I don't know if you've been following this, but for what OpenAI has been doing with a new model, it's really close to having an interpreter in your pocket, like just a friend. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. Okay. I don't want to scare you, but maybe you want to take a look at that
Yeah,
whenever you have the chance.
I think I've been refusing to follow it because I'm scared.
None of your colleagues have been talking about it?
No, I think everybody's scared. Nobody's
Okay.
really doing any research on it. Yeah, but I don't, but so with my limited knowledge, I feel like we still have a little bit of time before they no longer need a Japanese English interpreter because Japanese, so you know how it is. It's very free form, and people just talk very, I don't know, very freely, and but you can still understand what they're saying. But I don't know if AI could understand all that and accurately translate that into a language like English. You know, I'm hoping we still have like 10 more years. I don't know, but AI is growing really fast. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 10, but who knows? Who knows? Let's hope for the best. Let me ask you then, what is your future if you think about the whole AI development and that trend of a lot of people thought AI will replace a lot of blue collar businesses or sorry,
Mhm,
blue collar jobs, like
mhm,
because of automation. But actually, it's the opposite. A lot of white collar jobs are being replaced now, or management jobs, or creative jobs, unfortunately, even. People didn't think about that.
mhm.
Um, that yeah, that trend is happening, or that's something that is happening right now. How do you see your future? Have you thought about anything in regards to if AI does really come to the point where the HR department of the company says, "Oh, actually, we have a Zoom function now where they do inside the Zoom meeting a simultaneous interpreting, which or interpretation, which is so good that yeah, they might not need us in a year or so, or even on the shop floor that they wear like a small wearable device on in their pocket and it just translates one on one, or like the wave, what was it called, waveform, the
Waveform.
the device.
Oh, did you wait?
Oh, DigiWave, sorry. DigiWave, that DigiWave has simultaneous interpreting included in a couple of years if that happens. Have you thought about that?
I've thought about it, but I'm really actually pretty optimistic still. I know we just talked about maybe not even 10 years, but because there's so much that only maybe I'm just being too optimistic. I don't know, but I feel like there's are things that only people can provide, which is like, you know, the energy and the vibes and the personality of the interpreter. I think that's going to be more in focus once AI, becomes so accurate and precise with their interpretation. Then what we can provide as people is, the warmth, the positive energy or the negative energy or whatever it might be, or our personalities, and really reading the context or the essence of what people are trying to get at, which I believe we're still strong um, at doing more than AI at this point. So I'm not really thinking about, well, what's my, alternative career in the next 5 years? Not yet. I don't think I feel threatened enough to start thinking about that. So I'm just so therefore I will continue to focus on developing relationships with people because that's going to be key, I
That's
think.
true. And I think that will never subside, relationships to people. I think and people, especially right now, I think they crave it more than ever to
Mhm,
belong, like just belonging to some kind of, to have your own tribe, right? To belong
mhm,
to some circle of friends. And I think I read or heard this somewhere that it's like the five pillars of a fulfilled life is movement, nutrition, um, sunlight, and I think if you have a partner, that really helps. And if you have like a circle of friends, like really having a social network and good
mhm,
relationships, that's
mhm,
something that helps people to, yeah, get to a what do you call it, like an old age, or to live. It helps longevity for sure.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Great. I think I might have asked this 3 years ago, but maybe things have changed. Anything where you would like people to know more about you and what you do, or where you would like people to follow you?
Oh, nothing has changed in the last 2 years. I still have Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Yeah, you can search me on any of those platforms, I guess, if you're interested. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Aya. That was again a another interview, and I hope actually people that don't know, the last video with Aya is the most viewed video on this channel with 2,000, almost I think 2,500 views. So looking forward to another one. Definitely
Yeah,
doesn't have to do with me, but more with you. So I'm sure it must be your network and your relationships that draw people to watch this video.
I hope I don't disappoint you this time.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.
All right, thank you.